I'm Daniel Lucas. Thanks for joining Chasing Energy. By day and by trade, I'm a VP of Innovation. I spent a little over a decade as an ultra endurance athlete doing things like Ironman and long distance trail running. Now my focus is on helping you to achieve more energy in your life. Now I do that through three things: nutrition, training, and mindset. Now today's guest, we're going to mostly focus on training and mindset. He was the only coach I ever hired as a runner, and I did it near the end of my running, ultra running time. He was very effective, and I highly recommend him as a coach. We're actually going to do some gait analysis in the near future because I am rebuilding my stride, and that's a story for another podcast. It's been a long and humbling journey to do this. The nutshell of it is it was about a constant back pain, and I've had to sort of rebuild that. What are the things we cover today? Well, Nickademus de la Rosa is my guest today, and he has won the Barkley Marathon. And it is no joke. If you want to look up, there's Netflix documentaries about this race. I know people who have participated in this race, and they will tell you that it's hard to relate just how difficult that marathon is. And by the way, just so you know, it's not a marathon. It's actually over 100 miles in some of the most brutal, unforgiving terrain you can possibly imagine. People come from all over the world to compete, and they generally get humbled when they do. So for Nickademus to have done as well as he did, not only the year he won, but we covered the year that he went in there at around 18, 19 years old and was able to complete 3 loops, which is amazing in and of itself. So we do talk about that. Now, he has so many other races to his credit. If you want to just go to Ultra Sign Up and look at some of the other amazing long distance races he's done, some of the hardest in the world, you're welcome to do so. For the purposes of this interview, I mostly wanted to focus on how that changed his life and how he kind of views the resilience that's needed for these type of things and applying it to other parts of his life. He talks a lot about balance. And in fact, he is mostly, I could tell, but if you read between the lines with Nickademus, he's very focused on balance, like how he met his wife. And since he's met his wife and been dealing with some of his anxiety and depression, he's become a much better person. And no coincidence, he's also become a better athlete in the process. So we do talk about grit, self-identity. We talk about his open heart surgery and the depression that was sort of linked to that. Training by the amount of hours and heart rate is kind of his approach as a coach, and I found it to be very effective. In fact, after he coached me, I sort of integrated that into my training. We do end the interview talking about the different types of wide shoes that, and by the way, I highly recommend that if you don't wear wide shoes, at least look into it, because there's a lot of benefits to making sure your foot has room to breathe and grow. I hope you enjoy this episode of Chasing Energy with Nickademus de la Rosa. It's something I've been looking forward to bringing to you for actually since I started the podcast. I've really wanted to bring him to this, so I'm honored to do that. If you could honor me and post a review wherever you listen to podcasts, because I make sure that this is streamed to all the different platforms. I would love a review. Tag me on Instagram at DP Lucas and just let me know, and I'll be glad to read your review on the air. I really appreciate that you have so many other podcasts sitting in your feed right now, and you're taking the time to listen to this one. I hope you get a good sense of value from it. I have some other guests coming up, and I hope to continue to improve and add little tidbits of wisdom to your life that make it more fulfilling. Thank you for listening to Chasing Energy. Nickademus de la Rosa, welcome to Chasing Energy. Glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Really honored to be here. Awesome to be a guest on your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Which part of Arizona are you coming from?
I live in Sedona, Arizona, right in the middle of all the vortices and good healing energy.
So vortices, yeah. I was at the Grand Canyon last year, and if anytime you looked up like Airbnb experience, or like half of them were involved the shaman.
Okay.
To help you get your energy in line. I will say, Grand Canyon is, you definitely feel a presence. of being like where you fit in the universe is being like super small and
Oh, it's
it's an amazing place.
it's a nice place to go with your anxieties and your problems, and then stand at the edge of a giant hole like that and be like, wow, I could get crushed by any of these giant rocks.
That's a great way to put it, Nickademus. I was at a very pivotal point in my life. My father was at the very end of his life, and when I did this trip, I was like, I hope I can get back in time. And it turned out to be a very cathartic experience for me. Credit to Joby Williams, a friend of mine, who put that trip together with me and some friends, and it was just such an amazing experience. I'm holding on to it, man. That's one of the good ones. So we got a lot to cover here. I want to start with what you're probably asked a lot about, and I've got this interview broken down into a couple of different things, including we're going to do a little bit about your racing, but not much. And
Okay.
I want to talk about grit a little bit, and then gait analysis near the end. So let's start with, I want to know, the first time you went to Barkley Fall Classic, if I recall correctly, it's been several years, but you were like the sacrificial lamb, correct?
Yeah, the first time I went to Barkley, not the fall. I've never been to the Barkley Fall Classic, but big Barkley, as people refer to it.
Yeah.
But
correction. I had just read your Instagram post about
right. Yeah.
Coach someone someone through it. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No worries. But the first time that I had showed up at Barkley, I'd been notified that I had gained entry into the event about a week before. And as a result of that, due to both my age, I think I was 20 at the time. No, I was 20. No, I was 20 at the time of the race. I remember that because all the guys went out for a drink after the race, and I couldn't go with them still. And that first, both due to my short notification and my young age, I was labeled the sacrificial virgin of the year. So that was in 2011.
Yeah. And how many loops did you get that year?
I got 3, so I got in a fun run, which was enough to impress Laz and be like, "Whoa, that guy's not a sacrifice. That's a guy who wants it." So yeah.
that's an entree.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I want to know when you won. Was it the following year you ran, or the year after that?
It wasn't until 2013. So 2012, I went back with a whole lot of ego and bravado, and a whole lot of my expectations were through the roof, and my reality of what I'd done for training was maybe similar to what I'd done the previous year, maybe a little bit better, but my expectations were through the roof. And I ran a really silly race where I got lost a whole bunch and frustrated a whole bunch, and I think I had the potential to finish that year along with John Fegge, Brett Mon, and Jared Campbell. But I threw it away with just getting lost and frustrated way too much.
Okay. And then the next time?
And then 2013, was when I went back, and I had this nice balance of just life and everything like that. I just started a relationship with my now wife, and had a couple of different jobs that I was working, was just out of college. So running wasn't the only thing in life that I was doing. And it struck this nice little patch where I had a lot of internal pressure, but not so much. I kind of describe it as having this correct balance between fear and respect. A healthy amount of fear for the event, respecting the event, and then confidence, but not overconfidence. And it was a time in my life when I just struck a little perfect window of that, enough to finish Barkley.
So my first real question for you here is, how did that change? What were your life plans before and after winning that race? In other words, how did winning that race change your outlook over the next several years?
Yeah. It was kind of a Mount Everest thing, in the respect of it was like, I'd done Badwater, I'd done quite a few other events and stuff at that point, and had really been searching since I was like 18, 19 years old for the world's toughest event, the world's hardest event to, I guess, prove myself at. And then finally in 2013 accomplished Barkley and did that. And then it was kind of, not a letdown, but immediately following that was, again, this kind of this egotistical expectation showing up. I remember Leona Divide 50 less than a month later, and San Diego 100 less than like 3 months later. Still totally burned out from Barkley, still completely under recovered and everything, and showing up at those events, thinking, oh, I deserve to win this. Oh, I'm going to crush this thing. Oh, these people don't know who I am. I'm a Barkley finisher. I'm going to crush you. And this unknown guy at the time, Rob Krar, who's, one of the better ultra runners in the world, shows up, and I ran with him a tiny bit at Northern Arizona University at a track club together. And then I was like, oh shoot, he got into ultras. And this was his debut 50 miler, and he just blew the course record off the charts there at the Leona Divide 50. And just, so there were a couple events like that where I kind of got knocked back into reality of like, okay, I'm may have finished Barkley, but I'm not the top of the world. And then in terms of overall outlook, it was interesting. It was, I don't know. It was a mix. It was at Tour de Giants, which I did in, which I did that September. And then, I performed really well at that one. Yeah, go ahead.
These are more about your races. I want to know what, in terms of your outlook on life.
My outlook on life. Yeah. Good challenge
plans,
question.
Life plans. Yeah.
Yeah. What did I do? I left my job at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, where I was doing school assemblies for kids and stuff for that organization. That job was up at the end of the school year in June. And then I stopped immediately after Barkley working as a personal trainer. And then kind of gave up both of those jobs to pursue, or what I thought at the time. I was like, okay, I'm going to pursue ultra running like entirely. And I'm just going to be an ultra runner, and I'm going to give up on trying to move out of my parents' place. And I'm just going to live here for now. And so I have a flexible job, or so I told myself. I'm going to work listing comic books, and listed my stepdad's overstock comic books through his garage. And it made money. It made enough money to get by living at your parents' place. And then the races were obviously sort of sponsored. But looking real quick back,
I can see your title on LinkedIn being something along the lines of independent reseller.
Yeah.
Reseller.
Yeah. Looking back on that though, with kind of a critical eye, I would say, something like that. If an athlete does something like that, to sort of beware in the regard of how much that my sort of having done it myself is don't quit your day job. In the regard of like, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and I began to put all my eggs in one basket in terms of my athletic identity post Barkley.
Yeah, and ultra is a very hard sport to make any money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, there's no. You're not making a bank in this sport. And so it was a weird time post Barkley.
You could argue with something like golf. There's a little bit more of a income possibilities if you're a pretty good golfer with being like a golf pro and still making the tour. But with running, it's very difficult to secure that sort of foundation.
Yeah.
There's like people on one hand that make a living off of it. So
yeah, absolutely. And wanted to mention the last thing real quick on Barkley, finishing it in 2013. It was 5 days after the race that my heart was feeling funky, and I was like, oh, I'm having not trouble breathing, but my heart just feels kind of funky. I should go get this checked out. And I went and I got it checked out, and that was when I got my first time diagnosis of a bicuspid aortic valve. Which eventually would lead to an aneurysm, which is where I got my heart surgery later on.
And this is the pericardium, is that correct?
The bicuspid aortic valve, and the pericardium's the piece of it, the piece of the heart that covers the heart, encapsulates the heart. But yeah.
Okay, so that was the first hints. Did they tell you as far? Let's go into your heart.
Sure.
Did they tell you what mix of nurture versus nature this is? Like how much of that is genetic versus running the ulcers?
Yeah, almost entirely nature versus nurture. So almost this is entirely something I inherited. That's a genetic disorder that happens in occasional people. Okay. So it's bicuspid aortic valvular disorder, BAVD. The doctors at the time, I don't think there's enough research done on it. I don't think there's enough. If there is, then then I have not stumbled across it myself, and don't claim to be the expert on this whatsoever. But on how much running or aerobic training does impact the growth of things such as aneurysms in folks who have BAVD.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that when in my very humble years as a ultra runner, because I was not much of a podium person, but what I do think we could relate on is I struggled when I'm a father, and then I had a day job and all this stuff, and you're training and you're out there and you hit those walls, and I would ask myself, what is the point of doing these things? And the answer that I would generally get from the divine was that it was to prepare me for what was ahead of me in life. Do you feel like the Barkley prepared you for what was ahead of you with the hard problems?
That's a good question. I'm gonna sadly answer. Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm gonna sadly answer no. I think at the time in Barkley, I was so in a world of Barkley. I was so in a little world of it meant nothing more than. I wasn't
that's
thinking.
Not what I mean.
Yeah.
What I mean is, like, how does the mental have resilience, grit, and things like that of training for an ultra prepare you for these type of life setbacks?
I would like to say it translates again, but in that respect, for me personally, and I've heard that come to me from multiple sources before, like, oh, you're so good at hundreds. Wow, you must be able to persist through anything. Oh, you must be tough enough to get through anything. Wow, you finished Barkley. You must be able to persist through like job applications and have this amazing will and determination. And it doesn't, for me personally, it's never translated to, having a phenomenal work ethic or having a phenomenal discipline. Am I kind of scratching the right itch there?
I think so. And in fact, let me add to your point here. I find it very hard to fathom that people can train and do ultras and still do something that requires an extreme amount of willpower outside of that at the same time. For example, if you just got into a new job role or something like that, and it's going to require 100% of your mental capacity during those extended working hours, and then adding in an ultra on top of that, I don't know how people do that. I've always kind of looked at it as if I'm going to do an ultra, it's going to require my willpower will be like leftovers in the microwave,
right?
Whatever's left after that.
Yeah. I find it at individuals like Brett Mowney, really inspirational in that regard. Then, and here's a guy who's got a family, he's got a job, the education of a nuclear physicist, and works somewhere in the agricultural world now out in Boulder, but then has the Barkley record and is really able to, I wouldn't say he's able to balance all three of those. I know him personally, but is able to achieve these things still, which is amazing.
That's well stated. That's very well stated. The last thing I'll add to that point, and then we'll move on, is one of my Achilles heel, and I don't presume most people have this problem, but you were saying that when you did the hundreds, people just assume that you can just fire through all these other things that are outside of racing. And I can relate to you because I tell people one of the things about me is I have a hard time starting stuff effectively. My sort of superpower is once I've committed and I've started something, I have a very, very hard time quitting. So to put that in perspective, if you want to just do a practical training analogy, if we agree, Nickademus, if you and I agree to do like a 30-mile run on a Saturday, and we're on our way to the run, you could talk me out of it pretty easy. You could actually on the drive go, you know what, let's go out to eat and then walk at the park. And I probably wouldn't put up too much of a fight, depending on how committed I was to that. If there was a race on the calendar, I might be. But once I've started, I have a very hard time stepping off, and even in cases where it makes more sense to. So I'll leave it at that and say, you're right. There are a lot of things where it doesn't transpose directly. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, I know you mentioned Goggins a lot, and we will get into him, but I don't think his stuff transposes very well to life. I think he's good at doing what he does but he's not actually good at the life part of those things.
Sure.
Being
Yeah.
the husband, father, and all around person. So one of the things we talked about in terms of your maturing identity is that you used to have your self-worth tied to your running. And you kind of alluded to that just a few moments ago when you were talking about going back to Barkley for revenge. Talk to me about, after the surgery, what type of self-worth methodology or mindset do you bring to your training and racing?
So it's sort of several phases of my life there. Pre-surgery, self-worth, which, just to get a kind of broad definition out there, like how we appraise our existence, our meaningness, our essence, how we see ourselves as worthy or not. I don't know if that paints any sort of good definition on it, but wish I had a better psychological definition. But the value with which we appraise ourselves, and so
you can assign a lot of words to that, but I think the generic term is self-efficacy.
Yeah. So self-efficacy is a great one too. How much we sort of, the self-efficacy definition that I get is sort of how much we trust ourselves or how much we believe in ourselves. With that, I've got a lot of ideas spinning around in my head. Steve Magnus just wrote this great book, Do Hard Things,
I like
that I'm reading through, and this chapter that I'm on is talking all about this.
And that's it. Nickademus, that's a great example of someone who's taken running and applied it to so many different areas.
He's done a wonderful job.
Yeah, he's done a wonderful job. He's partnered with some entrepreneurs in some of his books that I've read, and you're right, he delivers really well.
Yeah. So thinking on that concept of self-worth and where was it sort of positioned, is your question, post-surgery?
Yes. So how is your self-worth and your methodology for like what you think of when you think of Nickademus? How do you deal with that post-surgery versus pre-surgery in terms of your race performance or whatever it is you're taking on?
So post-surgery, currently to this day and present, I'm able to, like at the Kodiak 100, it was nice. So that was the 100-miler that I just did first time post-surgery, a little less than a month ago. I was able to finish that with my self-worth. Like, it was cool to get second place. It was nice. It was like really like icing on the cake to be able to be competitive still, a little bit unexpected, to be honest, in some ways. At the same time, like, it went back to normal the next day. Like, the Nick who I was on Thursday before the race, who's, excited about the race and, what's going to happen. And then the Nick who's, getting the second place award on Saturday. And then the Nick who's cleaning animal cages and, I don't know, whatever, making dinner for my wife and I, on Tuesday night. That's all the same Nick. And there's no value really. The worth of that Nick is the same throughout all of those, regardless of the results.
Yeah. So that's the pro and the con, right? Is that your wife looks at you and says, "Oh, well, I'm glad you did that. I'm proud of you." And then it's right back to business as normal. But the pro of that is that regardless of how you do in that race, you come home and she's like, "I'm still proud of you." And so, I know what you mean when you come home, especially in my case, the kids, they don't give a rip what I have been through. What I have back home from. They could not care less. Yeah. So the message I do with my family is just go ahead and assume nobody cares and that you're just doing it for yourself.
Yeah. That's an interesting, and it was very contrary to pre-surgery for me, which was, again, assuming that everybody overpraising my matter to everybody else and thinking, this must matter to everyone. Which was why, when I came home from, Tour de Giants in 2014, I remember being depressed for a week or two. I was second place at that race. Doesn't everyone in America know and care that I was second place at this race? I was the only American never do this, blah, 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 blah. And being depressed for a week or two, that like, no one knows me, no media picked me up, no I run far, no this, no that. And it was just like, I was like, why doesn't anyone care? And and yeah, just to have been more in that mind, certainly pre-surgery, that's a lot more, at least where my mind was in some ways.
Yeah. Funny thing on that, no matter how many races I did and how I did, I could not get my parents to care. And this is in my earlier days where I thought, surely at one of these, they're going to be like super impressed. The local magazine at some point put me on the front cover. I didn't think it was that big a deal, to be honest. They walked around with that magazine. So I couldn't understand the logic of that. I was like, well, that didn't take any work at all.
Yeah.
But it meant more to them. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about grit. Historically, you said your focus was finishing at all costs and, kind of a Goggins mindset, which I feel like Goggins is one of those people who's a mixed bag when it comes to ultra running. When people are like, they find out you run ultras and they're like, do you know David Goggins? Have you read David Goggins? And I feel like, not everybody has to break all the bones in their feet to finish a race.
Right,
That's
right.
Who aren't very smart. But let's talk about with grit. Historically, you were talking about finishing at all costs, and currently, you think about things like self-compassion and what will get you further in life, and giving yourself grace. Specifically, I'll make this. I'll give you a softball question since I've given you some hard ones.
Sure.
Your thoughts on self-compassion and kindness in the Kodiak 100. Tell us a little bit about the dichotomy of your thoughts. One of classic Nickademus, being a little bit of a self-critic, which is something I struggle with immensely. And then the one in the journal entry that is saying, I'm practicing self-compassion and kindness during this event.
Yeah, my first thought is I don't think we're ever going to get rid of the self-critic. I think that's something that we're inherently with. It's back there and part of your limbic system as a protector, as a survival mechanism to scope and see everything in the world as potentially dangerous, as a potential threat. Specifically for me, it's sort of an old thought pattern when that came up during the Kodiak 100, being able to have that awareness at all that it is a thought pattern in the first place, rather than what used to happen was that thought pattern would come up, it would take the driver's seat, and then it would drive my actions and behaviors towards whatever the heck it wanted to go to, often moving faster or something along those lines, fueled by anger and fear and that kind of a thing. These days I have the awareness to, the mindfulness and awareness to notice, that thought pattern's coming up. I'm feeling unsettled. There's that feeling of, I'm feeling, inadequate as I begin to cramp right now, and 5-6 people just passed me. Here's a feeling of inadequacy and less than. Man, it's okay to feel okay. It's okay to feel inadequate and less than sometimes. This feeling will pass. You're doing the best that you can right now. You're doing the most that you can right now. And I know you're trying your best. And there's this gentle voice, that's honestly probably sounds a bit like Kristen Neff, who's the author of a lot of self-compassion books. And it just kind of comes over me, and it's just a nice, gentle, soothing voice that exactly like you said, it's giving myself grace. It's giving myself the space and ability to walk, to move slower for a little bit if I need to walk if I want to. And it's funny, you would think by exposing that weakness and exposing that vulnerability, the irony there is, by exposing that, you're just going to be a weak, you're just going to be a loser, you're just going to slow down and stop and want to quit then if you allow yourself to walk or whatever, if you're not tough on yourself, which is the narrative that I'd given myself for so many years. Don't be weak, show no weakness, that kind of crap. And that's not crap. There's a time and a place for it, perhaps, but it's funny though, in giving yourself self-compassion, saying, okay, I'm allowing myself to walk if I want to. The likelihood, the statistical probability that you will walk is way less than if you show no weakness, push hard, where you will reach a point eventually where your body will give up and you will walk. And when you do walk, you will slingshot between maybe a 9-minute mile where you overpushed yourself at, and then you'll slingshot to like a 30-minute mile down, dejected and depressed, where it's very hard to climb out of, versus if we're self-compassionate with ourselves, we can be a lot steadier in our effort. And that was what I managed to pull off at Kodiak.
So let's talk about that analogy, because I like that, and I don't know if you've ever assigned a name to that person. By the way, that's an exercise that you can do at some point. But where when you start to hear that narrative, you go, "Oh, that's angry Nick," or proud Nick. But the point I'm getting at here is you were using the driving analogy, which I like that analogy. I've used that one before. You need both of those people in the car, right?
Yeah.
There's certain times where angry Nick needs to be at the wheel, because you're like, okay, there's not really a good reason for me to be holding back at this point. But there's also points where you need the graceful Nick at the wheel that says it's okay. And if you can listen to me for a little while, I'll hand it over to angry Nick for the last 5 miles, and you can fight to that.
Yeah.
So I see it as, you talk about it being like, I'm trying to think of the name of the author, the art.
The obstacle is the way.
Ryan Holiday's pretty good about that stuff.
Okay.
No, but he was inspired by this guy. I'll think of the guy to come to me in a minute. But the point is, he dubs it the resistance, and the point of the resistance is to always critique yourself. And the author's point is, no matter where you go, you could go to Mars, you will never get rid of the resistance. It is part of the human nature that says you will never be good enough. And just learning how to use it as fuel, and in some ways use it as a compass. What is it trying to keep you from accomplishing?
Yeah, I think that's
So
a really
we've gotten
beautiful
pretty
piece.
deep on sports psychology here.
Yeah.
We've gotten pretty deep on sports psychology. Let's talk a little bit, because you used to coach. I've only had one running coach, and that was you. And
All right.
if anything, my biggest mistake was not doing it several years earlier.
All right, that's good. It's good to hear.
Yeah, when you trained me, one of the things that you were big on was training by time and heart rate effort, as opposed to pace and things like that, which I've since completely agree with and tell people. Tell us a little bit about why that's how you prescribe that as a coaching method with Lightfoot coaching.
Sure. Yeah. And those are two modalities that I use. I kind of like to have a toolbox these days of both time, RPE, heart rate, and of course distance. At the time, heart rate and distance for you, time specifically, I like to prescribe for individuals who have been historically self-critical of distance, or maybe historically get a little bit of anxiety with, oh my God, I have 6 miles. I can't believe it's 5 more miles to go. And the cool part with time passing is that, you can have a horrible day and RPE 5, heart rate 140 beats per minute, and cover 6 miles in an hour. Or you can have a fantastic day, and this as a pretty fit person, I guess, or a fantastic day where, you cover 9 miles in an hour, RPE 5, heart rate 140 beats per minute. And you did an hour worth of work on each of those days, regardless of distance, versus, I give you 8 miles, on a bad day that might take an hour and a half, on a great day that might take an hour. And now we have a 30-minute discrepancy worth of workload there. So that was one of the advantages there of time. Heart rate is a great metric to follow. It is folly to a lot of different things throughout the summer. Specifically, heat really throws it off. COVID-19 threw it off for a while there during the pandemic. And so heart rate can...
But with heat, wouldn't you say that if you're running at a 150 heart rate and you're having to run slower because it's hot outside, isn't it pretty much the same?
Yeah, it's nice. It's I like heart rate as I like using, if athletes, and that's another thing, is coaching remote athletes. I don't have heart rate monitors to give out everybody, because everybody's strewn across the nation and world who I coach. And so not everybody's a heart rate monitor. A lot of the times they'll rely on the wrist monitors. They're not as accurate as the chest monitors.
Those are not, and I was waiting for you to say that. They're not. I buy the armband ones are great then.
Okay.
I don't like the chest straps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I've actually done testing where I grabbed a heart rate monitor and compared it during exercise, like how much of a delta is there.
Oh, cool. Nice, man. Yeah, but yeah, I was just gonna say for heart rate, I like training folks who are beginning, so beginners who are getting into ultras, as a way so they can learn their internal RPE of 1 to 10 scale. And then I like using it as a check-in once in a while, for folks, for instance, for running in the heat, and you go, hey, Dan, go run an RPE 6, today. And you're going and running RPE 6. Okay. What heart rate does that correlate to? Oh, okay. Like I thought, it correlates to about an 830 pace. That seems about right. And then you can go back to not using a heart rate monitor for a bit until the next check-in.
I find you can actually do games with yourself to make it more intriguing on an easy day, where you say your heart rate's not allowed to go beyond, say, 140, and that actually makes it fun to me to say, well, that'll force me to go easy, because I'm the kind of person who, if I go out there and I'm feeling good that day, well, I'm going to ride. And that's very, very counterintuitive to building up a great performance. Just going on.
It's nice. It stifles that ego from or that sort of ego from going ahead and doing that. And it's interesting. Good point.
Yeah, there's days to run with the fast pack, and there's days to run with the slow pack, and just kind of learn how that falls into your training. So let's talk a little bit about some basic gait analysis. We're going from grit to gait now.
Sure.
And there was kind of a transition in there. But when you look at gait analysis, and this is the reason I'm not running now, is I've had for 7 years now, I've had back pain when I run, and I think a large part of it was due to tearing my hamstring 7 years ago. And I never quite had a good gait to start with, but it got much worse after that. So when you think about, I heard you on another interview talking about hip flexor tightness being one of the issues, which I certainly have. I forgot the name of the test where you do basically like you lay on your back and do a figure 4. It starts with an M.
It's one of them is a Thomas test, is the common one. Thomas test is the common one for hip flexors.
Right. And anyways, what are some of the ways that you suggest people to really work on their hip flexors and open them up so they get a better stride?
In terms of opening up the hip flexors, yeah, it's a great question. So I'm a really big fan of Thomas Meyer's whole concepts of what are called myofascial trains. He wrote a book called Anatomy Trains a while back, and trains a whole legion of physical therapists, massage body workers, and gait analysts, in terms of these fascial trains. And so the hip flexors are on this train called the deep front line, which is, so muscle fascia is the sort of spider web-like material that if we cut into a human and we saw the muscle, there would be this sticky stuff that surrounds muscles, and that's the muscle fascia. That is interconnected to in different chains throughout the body, and one of those, like I said, is the deep front line. And so the hip flexors connect down into the adductors, and connect up into the what do they connect up into? I don't know what they connect into up above exactly, but down below they connect into certainly the adductor groups, or sartorius, gracilis, and those guys. And I would suggest, in terms of a person who's trying to work on increasing their hip flexors, gentle stretches such as, pigeon pose, Cossack squats, that kind of a thing that, a weighted
pose, if for someone like me, is not a gentle stretch.
Okay. Yeah.
It's an aggressive one, but that should tell you how much I need this.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Pigeon pose, and what was the other?
Cossack squats, which are sort of like a side lunge, like a fancy side lunge, essentially. There's some certain yoga poses I can think of, like Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, which are great for opening the adductors. It's the adductor group that you want to open. And you can do some gentle mobilizations, maybe with a softball or a foam roller on the inside of the thigh as well. And work on pinning and stretching. So pin down that muscle and then kick that leg forward and go through that pinning and stretching will work real well too for loosening up that deep front line. And then in terms of the hip flexors themselves, my last point I'll make is banded marches. And by doing those, one of my favorite quotes is a as a tight muscle is also a weak muscle. So often if the hip flexors are tight, they're often probably weak simultaneously. And that muscle's contracted into a tighter state because it's weak. And so if you're doing some banded hip flexion, that can really help strengthen and loosen the muscle.
I'll paraphrase an alternative idea that a tight muscle is usually also, it might be weak, but it's making up for a weakness somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah,
example,
that too.
In my case, I have a weak right glute, so my back gets super tight because it goes straight from my hamstring to my back, and one of the two has to pick up the load.
Yeah.
Great points. The one other thing I'll add on the exercise is, and I've seen, I'm by no means a trainer, but I've been doing this lately, is it's very similar to the contact squat that you mentioned, but you basically get on your knees with a kettlebell and do like this sideways lunge and just sort of hold it open.
Yeah, that's another wonderful adductor stretch.
Yeah, and I've been seeing more of that with people who have abductor issues. I've actually been trying it. It's actually a lot. When you watch it, it looks like you're not doing anything, but it's actually exhausting to your inner thigh.
You just can see you try it, and it's like, whoa.
So let's talk a little. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about shoes. I know that I think we share a passion for wide open shoes here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to give you first I want to ask, what are your go-to shoes for the trail right now? I think you're an Ultra person, right?
Yeah. I like Ultra and Topo are the two companies that I like wearing a bunch. So
I love Topo. In fact, it's funny you say that. You are the first person I've even ever met or even talked to that knew what a Topo was. I mean, it's so funny you mention that.
They need to get more on their marketing.
Yeah, they do. And actually their shoes, they're not well marketed. They're not well pitched, but they had a trail shoe that was a perfect alternative to an Ultra because it had like a 4 mil drop on it.
Yeah.
And I just used up my last. I had bought like several of them that were open box, and I just used up my last pair, so I'm gonna have to get back out there. But I'm glad you said that. Topos, Ultras.
Yeah.
It's difficult when you talk about wide feet because even if I buy like an extra wide Hoka, it still pinches in the wrong places. So it's kind of tricky finding a good wide shoe. And once you get used to a wide shoe, it's hard to go back.
Yeah, there's a big difference between, and it's funny, I was explaining this to my dad just the other day who's dealing with a bunion on his fifth metatarsal or his pinky toe. Yeah. And there's a diff. He's like, I have all wide shoes. What the heck? It shouldn't be squishing me over. When you buy a wide shoe, so we're talking a D width to a 2E or a 4E width, the entire shoe it becomes wider. It's still a pinchy shoe up in the front. It's still a narrow-toed shoebox. It's just you bought a shoe that has a wider heel and everything like that in it, but it's still a narrow toe box versus a wide toe box shoe, very similar sounding to a wide shoe. A wide toe box shoe like an Ultra or a Topo may still have a narrow midsole so it can capture your foot properly in a narrow heel, but its toe box area is much wider.
I just wanted to bring this out while you were talking.
Yeah. There you go, man.
Lifesaver.
The shoe widener.
This is a shoe stretcher. And so I wanted to just sort of reiterate your point about them being tied up top, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have bought this thing maybe 3 months ago, and it has saved me, especially with business casual shoes that were wide but not wide enough. I have been able to stretch them out with this thing, and it has given my shoes a new life. Because now I don't get headaches when I put my feet in there. And that's what happens if a shoe's a little narrow for me. I get a headache.
Interesting. Okay.
And and it's pretty quick too. When I was on the race team, we were sponsored by Solomon. And at the time, all they had was these super narrow shoes, man. I couldn't wear any of them. So I just gave them all away. But that shoe stretcher has been a game changer for like my business. And this was my follow-up question. Do you mostly just wear do you wear any type of business casual shoe?
Yeah. I'm 100% wear wide shoes. There's a company called Lems that I like, LEMS, that makes wide-toed business casual shoes and casual shoes. Zero Shoes, which is XERO shoes. Makes a bunch of business casual shoes as well. And then there's another company called Ground Feels or something like that. That my wife picks me up a couple pairs of those occasionally. I used to love Allbirds. Allbirds were a favorite of mine for a bit, and then it's just the narrowness of them from being in other shoes. I had to shift out. So, but yeah,
I will tell you, as much as I love the look of the Allbirds, and I have a few pairs, the insoles are crap. And so what I do is I take Crocs makes the best insoles. They're super phony and soft.
You're not alone
so
in
I
that.
take the Crocs insoles out and I put them in my Allbirds. And
Nice.
I call it my bastard shoe because it's two different things. But,
it's all Croc.
that's what I have found to work. All Croc, yeah, Croc birds.
There you
So
go.
we've kind of run the gamut here. Tell us a little bit about. I know you've got some coaching and a race promotion that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I both own Lightfoot Coaching, and so we take on endurance athletes. Primarily, we work with a lot of beginners, so folks who are looking to get into half marathons, stepping into their first ultra 50K or something like that. Work with a couple pros, but mostly beginners and everything. And we range from working on sports psychology. We cover a little bit of sports nutrition. Certainly, my background is in gait analysis and movement analysis. And then, we have a promotion going on right now where if folks sign up if you sign up with us, basically you get 15% off any of the Run Catalina events. So Catalina Island off of California, there's beautiful, beautiful place to go. They host a marathon, half marathon, a 50K and a 50 miler at different dates. Their 50K and 50 milers come up in January. And if you sign up with us, you get 15% off. So, yeah.
Yeah, the most beautiful destination race I did, and actually Rob Carr, he was second, I think, that year.
Of course he was.
It was the Sonoma 50.
Okay, cool, man.
That race, I tell people all the time, it's a lottery. It was the last year before they made it a lottery, but
Okay.
that is one of the most beautiful destination races. Just 50 miles of gorgeous hills, and I mean that's the pro.
That's cool.
It's all rolling. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah, Northern California's got some beautiful races, and that's kind of what Catalina is for a lot of first timers and stuff. It's rolling hills the whole time, but it's all on a fire road, so it's really a nice, approachable first 50K or first 50 miler for a lot of folks, which is nice, and a lovely destination area.
So I want to end with one quick insight from you on nutrition, and I know the common thing that everybody says is know your body. But beyond that, I would like to know, Nickademus, how do you fuel yourself on a typical training day, not necessarily for a race?
Yeah, so I'm a big oh man. So I'll give you the shortest directest answer I can to it. I am on the elimination diet, which is basically no gluten, no corn, no dairy, no a lot of things, no soy, that kind of thing. I've been on it for a while now, so I've brought soy back in, and I am occasionally folly to things such as pastries, pizzas, other things. So I'm 95% on the elimination diet, but in general, I try to trend 100% towards it. Do I get it all the time? No. But I strongly believe kind of in an anti-inflammatory diet in general. And taking in foods that don't contribute to inflammation. I do that both for my mental health and for my physical health.
It is amazing to me. I certainly didn't plan to talk about this, but when your blood sugar is out of control especially during an event, how much that takes a toll on you mentally. When I used to do just the gels, I used to get my ups and downs were so dramatic. It was like a roller coaster where I would just crash. And I ended up going with a little bit more of a slow carb type approach. And if it's the last leg of a race, I'll switch to simple sugars just because they're easier on my stomach. And I don't have to worry about a crash in an hour or something like that. But it is amazing to me when you talked about your emotional health and stuff where nutrition plays a big role because your blood sugar swings. It really affects your brain and your body all the time.
Yeah, and
And
that's
if you're not, and if it impacts your sleep, then it's a whole different level of mental thought.
yeah, that's something I'm presently learning a lot more of through my wife, who's much more knows a heck of a lot more about it through me from her functional medicine master's degree. But yeah, I'm curious to learn. I'd like to learn more about the whole blood sugar, mental health relationship and everything like that. I've just began to learn it.
Well, it's come a long way technology wise because with these companies like Levels, you just pop the thing on your arm and your smartphone will tell you exactly what your blood sugar is 24/7. You'll find out real quick if that meal you ate causes your
Yeah.
blood sugar to spike.
That's
And
cool.
one of the most interesting thing about when they've studied large groups of people with blood sugar is that it turns out there is definitely a lot of truth to knowing your body because there are things like chickpeas that don't affect, say, people from Middle Eastern.
Okay,
It doesn't
gotcha.
spike their blood sugar nearly as much as some other people. They'll have chickpeas and it spikes their blood sugar.
Weird.
The example
Interesting.
they used in the example they used in the book was or in the study was there are people that a tomato would spike their blood sugar super high, and then there were people saying, "No wonder I feel like crap. I eat salads every day, thinking I'm doing myself a favor, and I feel like 2 or 3 tomatoes in there."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the point of that is to say there's technology, Nickademus, that you can leverage to say, "Is this serving me?" And
Yeah.
how old are you now, Nickademus?
32. Yeah. So
32. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of years on you, so I was going to
Yeah.
say after 40, the things that you're looking at now, just go ahead and turn that knob from like a 2 to a 7 as far
oh
as
man, it's
how
more
much
sensitive.
you will find. Well, you'll be way more interested in conserving. That's part of the podcast name, right? Is chasing energy. Is you become much more aware of how much energy it's costing you, and you're like, I have to fix this. Whereas when you're in your 20s and early 30s, it's kind of like
you can get away on gummy bears.
It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can.
It's
Yeah,
it's
you can have a
fascinating
pizza
thinking
beer,
about
you
that
build
though.
a
Like,
life on it.
yeah, it's fascinating thinking about that though from like a 40-year-old perspective. How much better could you have been if, but you know,
Oh, and not
interesting.
just in nutrition. Trust me. I mean,
Oh,
look
yeah.
back at my career now and go, oh man, if I'd have just made 2 or 3 tweaks there, or if I had invested in this, or if I had not dated that person,
Yeah,
you come up with all sorts of things.
sure.
But you're making a lot of good decisions, Nicodemus, and I'm really proud to have you on the show. I am also really inspired by how you are so outspoken about the things that you struggle with personally in terms of depression, and how you make a point of letting people know you're not alone. And just because, for example, I'm a very mentally strong person, it doesn't mean that I have it all together, right?
Yeah.
We all have these struggles. We don't need to have this being clear about. We talked about the people in your car, right? The Nicodemus that sort of beats you up, and the Nicodemus that gives you grace, and just knowing like, there are years where I've let the wrong person drive at the wrong times, and it's cost me. But you're still here, and you're still helping people, and I'm really proud of you, man. Thanks for all you do for the sport and
thank
for
you.
the people who follow you, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dan. Lovely to be here, man.
All right, man.
So
All right. Appreciate you, buddy.
cool.
All right, man.